My name is Bhavna Mehra, and I'm the General Manager of the Infosys Science Foundation. Welcome to the 13th Infosys Prize Winners Announcement Press Conference. 13 is seen as an unlucky number by some, but we consider ourselves in luck because today we are here to announce the winners of the 13th Infosys Prize, and they are some of the best scientists and researchers of our time who have been working on problems that confront us now, but their work is really timeless. So I'm very pleased and honored to have with us today the trustees of the Infosys Science Foundation, whom I'll introduce to you. Krishnan, the President of the Board of Trustees. Mr. Narayan Moorthy, Trustee of the Infosys Foundation. Mr. K. Dinesh, Mr. S.T. Shibulal, Mr. Nandan Nilekani. Thank you for being with us. And we're also very pleased to have Mr. Salil Parekh, CEO of Infosys, with us this evening. So without further ado, let's begin this press conference. I would like to invite Mr. Chris Gopalakrishnan to do the honors and welcome everyone.
Thank you. Good evening to all and welcome. I'm glad you could join us to hear the names of the winners of the Infosys Prize being announced today. Before we embark on this evening, I would like to tell you about the journey of the Infosys Science Foundation and how we got here. In 2008, Mohandas Pai conceptualized a prize for mathematics in association with the National Institute for Advanced Studies. The purse for the exciting academic award was set as rupees 10 lakh. All of us and Infosys got involved just hours before the prize was announced, and we increased the prize to rupees 50 lakhs. We realized the power of recognition in championing a cause and raising aspirations, an absolute need to do this. After 2008 prize, we decided to extend this successful model to other disciplines for fundamental and applied research. And so in February 2009, the Infosys Science Foundation was born. We set up the rules to recognize mid-career or contemporary scholars who would benefit from the recognition themselves and also inspire younger postdoctoral candidates in their labs. We knew many of them would also influence PhD students and hoped that their recognition would take awareness of their work and its importance to graduate and undergraduate students in India and around the world, and the society at large. We wanted to showcase that research was rewarding in more ways than one. With all of this in mind, we chose to add 4 categories to mathematics: engineering and computer science, social sciences, physical sciences, and life sciences. In 2012, we added a prize category, the humanities, to acknowledge the importance of studying society and culture. From our inception, we chose icons from the academia in these fields to chair the jury panels. They were Professor Amartya Sen, Professor Inder Verma, Professor Subra Suresh, Professor Srinivas Vardhan, Professor Srinivas Kulkarni, and Professor Kaushik Basu. Titans in their field who would attract the right set of experts to help them deliberate and choose the best winners, holding them to international standards. I'm so pleased that some of them are with us here this evening. Then we set simple statutes beyond compromise to shape the process and convey the kind of prize that we wanted this to be. Winners had to be under the age of 55, preferably under 50. So they are still active in research. The winners or their work had to have an India connection to benefit us with the outcomes. Showcased stellar work that is possible here and to inspire other young researchers in India. Our first set of laureates set the benchmark really high. Ashok Sen for mathematics, Tanu Padmanabhan for physics, Upinder Singh for social sciences, Vijay Raghavan for life sciences. Most scholars will recognize these distinguished names. The bar was set high and we haven't looked back since. Manjul Bhargava, Akshay Venkatesh, both won the Fields Medal shortly after winning the Infosys Prize. Gagandeep Kang became the first Indian woman to be elected to the Royal Society in over 350 years. Abhijit Banerjee and Esther Durfo went on to win the Nobel Memorial Prize in Economics. And in our own country, laureates of the Infosys Prize have been chosen to head important science agencies. And I think they will truly bring dynamism and understanding of researchers need on the ground to succeed. While we have all of this talent, we have very few names of scientists that the younger generation can look up to and emulate or even recognize. Our job as a foundation is to make icons and role models of these fantastic individuals who are showing us the way while finding answers to their own quests. They've stopped to wonder why, pursue a question to the end and solve a problem. We in turn need to listen to them so that we may live a better life. Before I conclude, I would like to pay tribute to the laureates we have lost too soon, who have blazed a trail of knowledge. Shamnath Bashir, winner of the Humanities Prize in 2014, was recognized for his scholarly work in intellectual property law and his initiatives in democratizing access to legal rights for all. And Tanu Padmanabhan, a brilliant physicist who increased our understanding of structure formation in this universe, quantum gravity, and also popularized science among the public. We fondly remember them and are grateful for their contributions. We are grateful to all the Infosys Prize laureates and myriad others like them who are like beacons showing us the way. So thank you all for joining today on the occasion of announcing the winners. And over to you, Bhavna.
Thank you, Chris, for those remarks. Very poignant. And we would like to now show you a video presentation to announce the 6 winners of the Infosys Prize 2021. I hope you enjoyed that presentation and hearing about the winners' work as much as we enjoyed putting it together. Details of their work are in our citation brochure and the press release that has already been disseminated to the members of the media. I am very pleased to let you know that we have all the winners with us this evening. That is Dr. Pratiksha Bakshi, Dr. Angela Xavier, Dr. Chandrasekhar Nair, Professor Pidangadas Mohanty, and also Dr. Neeraj Khayal. Professor Mahesh Shankaran is also here with us. So a big round of applause for all our winners. And if the media have any questions, you could ask the winners, as well as some of the the jurors who joined us today are also here. May I introduce them to you? Professors Ajay Sood, Shubha Tole, Professor Nirja Jayal, Professor Rajiv Bhargav, Professor Gopal Krishna Gandhi, Professor Rajiv Karandikar, and Professor Amita Bhaskar. So now we are open for questions from the media. I know that we have around 8 to 10 questions that are coming up. So please be mindful of time and ask 2 questions at the most. Let's move on to Deepika KC from The Hindu.
Hi, good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead,
Hi.
Deepika.
Yes, I have 2 questions. One is to the jury. How much did the pandemic have an impact on the decision that you've taken as far as the winners are concerned? It's apparent when it comes to 1 or 2 choices, but did COVID really play an important role now that we're in the second year of the pandemic? That's one. And second is to Dr. Nair. Testing has been one of the important aspects in combating the pandemic. Moving forward, what should the world be looking at when it comes to sort of combating new variants of viruses, new viruses probably? What is the strategy that we need to be looking at? Thank you.
Would any of the jury like to take that question? I believe that Deepika directed that question to the jury. So,
yeah.
Yes, Professor Ajay Sood, please go ahead.
Yeah, so for the first question, I can say that the work is really carried over many years before it comes to a stage that there is a recognition which can come. So in that sense, this 2 years of very hard time of COVID really did not affect the choices we made and the way we went about. So at least in physical sciences, we did not have that handicap. Thank you.
I can repeat, I can also say that in mathematics, the same thing applies. It is much longer waiting time for recognition. And in mathematics, we did not have any impact of the COVID thing.
I can second that for the prize in life sciences. I mean, certainly it's the achievements of the candidates that are evaluated and recognized. So whatever field of life sciences they happen to be in, finally you have to have discovered something, researched something, to fruition, achieved international recognition for it. So the pandemic hampers efforts, and despite that, people have managed to get their work out and published, and we greatly applaud that.
Can we now request Dr. Chandrasekhar Nair to answer the second part?
Yeah, thank you. I think the pandemic has shown us that future outbreaks are not something that we should not anticipate. It's definitely something that we can anticipate. Viruses and other pathogens, fungus, for example, are all things that are showing up in the COVID pandemic, and it will show up beyond. We saw the same thing in Nipah, where very early diagnosis and containment was able to contain Nipah. We are seeing the same things with other diseases of lesser prominence today. But the basic thing that we need to do as a community is to strengthen our healthcare ecosystem. Our grassroots healthcare has to be strengthened. Our ability to diagnose closer to the patient, enable very quick decisions, and contain diseases is what is going to help us eliminate future pandemics.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Professor Nair, Dr. Nair. And I'd like to see if Mugdha from CNBC TV 18, if you're here, you could unmute and ask your question, please.
Hi, good evening. Congratulations to all the winners. My first question is to Mr. Moorthy. The fact that just a few minutes ago, the health ministry has talked about the fact that there are 2 Omicron cases in India. What should be India's response right now to this crisis, given that the vaccination rate has been picking up about 125 crore doses already been given in India? What should be the response right now, especially in the light of this development? And generally, when it comes to R&D, in your view, what should be the investment and focus now when it comes to R&D in the pharma sector, in the healthcare sector, and overall when it comes to vaccinations, etc.? So your comments on that. And Dr. Chandrasekhar Nair, congratulations. And you have made a product based on PCR-based testing. It's a field-based testing. Can you talk a little bit about how you developed this product, what the challenges were, and what is the kind of applications right now that you're seeing on the ground?
Mugdha, I will answer the first question because I may have forgotten your second question. Well, we don't need to do anything more than what the government has been saying all these months. We have to use masks. We have to adhere to social distancing. We should not assemble in large crowds. I think if we were to take some of these normal precautions, I believe that we will be able to contain even this new strain, that is Omicron. I think in some sense, India has done a good job, because if you look at the number of people that we have lost due to COVID-19 or the number of cases compared to our total population, it is a much smaller percentage compared to most other nations. Of course, nobody knows about China, but if you were to leave China aside, I personally feel that we have done a reasonable thing, but we need to continue to do whatever we have been doing with a little bit less complacence and with a little bit more discipline. That's all what I would say.
Thank you, Mr. Moorthy. I think the next question was directed to Dr. Nair.
Thank you. Yes, see, the idea of PCR for point of care. First of all, PCR itself as a technique fascinated us tremendously, because here was a technique that could diagnose pathogens very sensitively as well as very specifically. And as an engineer, that really fascinated me and my team. We started looking at this problem more than 20 years ago. We knew that PCR was a great technique, but we also knew that it required tremendous amount of infrastructure and capabilities to run the PCR. So if it had to be useful in a country like India or in maybe 70, 80 other countries around the globe, we required something that was very easy to use, required minimal or no training, required minimal or no infrastructure, and was low cost. And that is what we set about doing. once we set those goals, once that goal setting was done, then the effort was to kind of reach those targets. And it has been a very interesting journey in terms of, first of all, ideating and then prototyping and then taking the entire cycle through high volume precision manufacturing, sales, distribution in around 40 countries today. So this is something that my team has been fantastic in that effort. And we are happy that we are in a position where we could make an impact when India needed it the most. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nair. Moving on, I'd like to invite Swathi Moorthy from Money Control to ask her question.
Hi, this is Swathi from Money Control. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, go ahead, Swathi.
Yeah. So I have just two questions open to anybody. One is about the impact the data protection laws. It's not, I mean, India recently has come up with the data protection. I mean, it's still in the bill stage. And across the world, we are seeing each of the countries coming up with their own laws. The impact, there are safeguards, which I understand, but the impact this could have on the research, the collaboration or outcome, if any, it could have, especially considering the cross-border research that are happening, a lot of collaborations. If you can, if one of you can answer that, Mr. Moorthy or Chris, if you can answer that, that would be great. And my second question is about climate change. So climate change is one of the burning issues right now. I understand a lot of work that is being done on climate change, but are we doing enough? Or if Infosys Foundation will look at this as a separate category, given the importance this weighs not just in India, but across the world. If one of you can answer that, that would be great. Thank you.
So let me, this is Chris here. Let me take the first question and then I will request Nandan Nilekani to answer the second part on climate change. On data protection and research, one reason why we need data protection laws is to make data available for research. Typically, the data that's available for research is anonymized data and population level data. Now you need large amount of data for example, machine learning, etc. And to make that data available in a reliable format, in a format that is useful for research, the data protection laws, in fact, I believe will help because it will clarify, it bring, a process for making this data available. If you look at the non-personal data protection recommendation framework that we have created, it talks about making data sets available for research as a shared infrastructure. So I believe that the data protection laws will make this data available for research in a manner in which that's predictable, that protects the privacy of the people and helps in research. Now I'll request Nandan to talk about the climate change question that you asked.
Thank you, Chris. And I think the question was whether climate change being so important, what about a price? I think that's what I gathered. Well, I think climate change has many, many dimensions to it. And some of the applications or some of the research required will be in the physical sciences, like, batteries or, energy efficient electrolyzers or whatever. Or some could be in computer science, for example, AI to optimize the grid. So I think it is such a vast subject that rather than a single thing, it would be, depending on the topic, it would go into the appropriate category.
Just to follow up, what I also wanted to understand was that from probably one of the researchers can answer about the kind of work that is happening in India. So compared to the Western countries where there's a lot of investment happening in the climate change research. So are we doing enough when it comes to climate change? Because it's going to impact everybody, including India. So that is also something I wanted to understand from probably one of the panelists, whoever can answer this.
Can I request Professor Mohanty, if you would like to answer, or maybe one of the jurors could answer.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is not directly related to the area in which I work, but as far as I know, there is a conscious effort being made to understand the impact and how to handle climate change. There is real effort going on also in the country. Thank you.
Can I take a stab at that?
Mahesh Shankaran.
Mahesh Shankaran?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would agree with what has been said, that climate change is a very vast field. And there is a lot of work going on in India when it comes to trying to model the monsoons and also look at ecological impacts of climate change. But I think the solutions are interdisciplinary. And I think, can we be doing more? Yes, we can be doing more. And I think the way we should be focusing are on interdisciplinary solutions, which involve the social sciences, engineers, economists, and so on. And but yes, there is good work going on here. And I don't know if that answers your question, but as with everything, we could be doing more.
Thank you, Professor Shankaran. I'm sure that your work is very relevant to this field, and I request the journalists to reach out to Professor Shankaran later to understand this better. We'd like to move on to Pearl D'Souza from the New Indian Express. You could ask your question, please.
Hi, I have two questions. One is for Miss Bakshi from JNU, who has done work on sexual violence and jurisprudence, to explain a bit about the work, and then maybe I'll do a follow-up question regarding the recent trends around the pandemic, because we've had a lot of cases of sexual violence. I just want to understand your work, and if my question would be related, then I would like to ask that question. And my second question is to Mr. Mahesh Shankaran, who has worked also on Western Ghats. So this is relating the mercury poisoning that happened at Kodaikanal long ago. And I just wanted to know what is the present status, if you're still working on that, and if that comes under your purview.
Thank you so much for your question. I'm not sure if I can answer this question very briefly, but I'm going to try. So my work is a sociological study of rape trials in a trial court in Gujarat. And what I did was I looked at everyday practices, including courtroom speech, how questions are asked of rape survivors, what are the legal processes and the very routinized and everyday forms of indignities that rape survivors face in courtrooms. So it was a courtroom ethnography, which was conducted over a period of 18 months. Basically, I have looked at also how, processes which are illegal, for example, compromise is technically illegal in law, but rape survivors are routinely forced to compromise rape cases, and then perjury charges increasingly in the recent years. Rape survivors are being accused of perjury or defamation, or even contempt law is being used against them. So then we saw that in the pandemic, where a gang rape survivor was sent to the prison at the height of the pandemic under the law of contempt. Stop here if you have any other question.
Right, then a follow-up question would be, the recent, I'm still not sure if this question would come under your purview, which is a statement that Indira Jaisingh made recently about how you have these sexual passes made even at the highest judicial courts. Do you have some work in that regard, and what are your latest understandings? Or yeah.
Right. And unfortunately, the judiciary is also misogynist because law is embedded in society, and women lawyers and even women judges have experienced sexual harassment within the judiciary. It is extremely hard to name sexual harassment and other forms of sexual abuse, especially when you are in that legal hierarchy, because legal hierarchy itself is masculinist. So we require a lot more work within our judiciary to, sort of end this problem of sexism and sexual harassment, because we can't think of law as something which is, separate from society.
Now for the second part to Mahesh Shankaran.
Hi.
Yes, go ahead, Mahesh.
Although I work at the Western Ghats, I work on grasslands and savanna ecosystems in the Western Ghats, and I haven't specifically worked in Kodi or on issues related to the mercury poisoning there. But I can put you in touch with people who can answer your questions more effectively than me. I wouldn't want to venture something given that I don't work in that system and I haven't worked there. Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Shankaran. Our next question is from Anusha Krishnan from India Bioscience.
Hi, I'm Anusha from India Bioscience. And my first question, I have two questions. My first question is to the ISF. Any one of the panelists can answer this. While the ISF celebrates achievements in research and scientific endeavors with the awards, we also know that a very critical component of the research is good science communication. So does the ISF have any plans for boosting science communication in India? My second question goes to Mahesh Shankaran. The question to him is that given that this pandemic has been a zoonosis, which is a virus that's skipped from an animal and has jumped into humans, how is this affecting how our government is looking into conservation and other issues right now?
So to answer the first part, can I ask Mr. Shubhalal to talk about the communication programs that we have? Of course, through those programs, we are encouraging, science communication, and then Mahesh Shankaran will come back to answer the second part. Shubhalal?
Right. So over the years, actually, ISF has done a number of initiatives to enhance science communication. The award ceremony itself, I see as a communication platform where we are celebrating the success of many, many researchers, and we bring a very large set of people together. That is one. Secondly, ISF has and used to have physical meetings where the winners will speak. There was a lecture series which was done by ISF over the years where our winners and our jury members will come and speak to various communities across the country. We have done this in tier 1 cities as well as in tier 2 cities. I think that was an excellent communication platform which we have used to build awareness. And we also conducted other kinds of programs where we bring in children into our campus and give them crash courses on various aspects of science. So over the years, ISF has done a number of things to enhance the awareness of science, the need for to emphasize the need for creating curiosity in our children, and celebrating success in science. Thank you.
Mahesh?
Thank you, Shubho.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So in response to your second question about zoonosis and spillovers, so we know spillovers happen when, or the likelihood of spillovers happening is really high when you have a high diversity and abundance of hosts. So in this case, bats or, and when you have high human populations and where the interface between humans and wildlife is high. And if you look at the areas where the probability of spillovers, that is the pathogen jumping from one host like a bat or a rodent to another host such as the humans, is likely to occur when that interface is really high. And these are places like the tropics where you have high biodiversity and you have high human populations and you have high interface. And land degradation, habitat destruction, or anything that increases the contact of the humans with wildlife is like a precursor for these spillovers. And in order to reduce them, I think, habitat conservation and, restoration of lands, reduction in degradation, all of that become important. And in terms of, that's what the government should be doing in terms of encouraging restoration programs and reducing degradation and land clearance. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Thank you. May I request Ayushi from the Hindu business line to please come on and ask her question?
Yeah.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think my first question is directed towards the panel overall. So, and also towards Mr. Moorthy. So Mr. Moorthy has previously called for compassionate capitalism, that is for, people and entrepreneurs, etc., or business leaders to divest some part of their wealth to share it with in order for social upliftment overall. But what I want to ask just generally academics as well as Mr. Moorthy is to what extent can let's say public philanthropy essentially alleviate the kind of social and economic and political problems that create these issues in the first place and perpetuate poverty, social and gender inequality, etc. And what is the best way for us to systemize and go forward in overcoming these situations?
Moorthy, please unmute.
Mr. Moorthy, if you unmute.
This is an excellent question. However, this is not the platform to take up such questions. I'm sure there will be other appropriate platform to take these questions. So let's restrict ourselves only to the Infosys Prize, the winners, and the impact of their research.
Understood. Right. So can you give me a minute, sir, if it's possible?
Please.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So ultimately, what do researchers, or like what do present prize awardees see the impact of your current see the impact of the current Infosys Prize to be on their work and on overall scientific dialogue, if you could tell us?
So would Neeraj or Angela would like to answer? Maybe Angela first and then Neeraj. Okay, Neeraj first and then Angela.
Hi, thanks. So I have been fortunate to be part of a large community in India of scientists working in my area, algebraic complexity. And as a community, we have been making significant contributions to this area. And I think it's fair to say that it's one of the few scientific areas where India is one of the world leaders in contributing to the progress. So recognized, I'm happy to be recognized, but more importantly, it's a recognition of the work that is happening in India. And so I'm sure that other people, very recently, other people in India have made fantastic progress in this area. And this will encourage even more progress. Yeah, so that would be the impact on my field. Thank you.
Angela, yeah.
Yes. Well, I was quite surprised with these awards, and because I'm mainly working in Europe, and so I was not quite aware of who were my readers and how my work had or not an impact in India, and so this prize is really important, not precisely for me, but also because it makes clear that these connections do exist and that we really have to have these networks of information that flow from many different sites, and that the work that is being done, in this case, my case on India, is read by Indian people, and the other way around, because that's how science should work, is that everybody is able to dialogue with everybody. And for me, this is a great opportunity to be more in dialogue with Indian scholars, because I had a more Western, let's put it that way, career, and it's really very exciting to be able to do it.
Right. I think just one more question that I have. It is regarding something that was said in the panel a bit earlier on how it was, let's say, slightly harder to push research, etc., during the pandemic. So ultimately, what was the impact that COVID has had and is still having on dialogue and pushing of research forward, and I guess getting your work published, or let's say talk or like collaborating with your colleagues in order to get better quality research to us?
Maybe Professor Mohanty and maybe one of the jurors who joined can also step in.
Okay, so I work on experiments which are very complex, and it's a mega science. As a result, it is done in few laboratories worldwide. So we know how to collaborate, and we have been able to do that during this COVID time. And the impact has been that we are not able to travel to man our detectors and take the data because of this restriction. So we now heavily depend on our host country expert to do that, even to man and maintain our detectors which are built in India. But otherwise, it's a well-knit community where we exchange ideas freely, and publications has not been impacted.
Yeah, I can say that it started off on a difficult note, with people not be able to travel, not able to lecture to their students, not able to participate in conferences. But over time, people have used this, especially in theoretical sciences of the kind that I work in, that this is used as an advantage, and we are able to communicate with people across the world. I'm a member of an international committee of mathematics in which different people participated odd hours, and we are meeting every month, whereas in the past this committee could meet at most once or twice in a year. So this disadvantage has been, to some extent at least, turned into advantage, doing things which could not have been done earlier. Earlier, we couldn't have imagined a meeting where everybody attending online. So difficulties are there, but there are opportunities. And hopefully the merger of the two would happen in a year or two, and we can combine the hybrid mode will become the norm. Let's hope so.
Thank you so much. Valid points all. Our next journalist is Shivani Shinde. If I could request you to please unmute yourself. Shivani Shinde from Business Standard.
Hi, good evening, gentlemen. Congratulations to all the awardees. My question is to the ISF members. You know, the focus of this year's prize, looks at the challenges that we are facing currently. It looks more current. Was it a deliberate attempt to focus on these themes? If somebody can answer that, and also how are these themes selected over the years? What has made you, what has made you to choose the themes that have been coming out?
So let me take that. See, the trustees leave the decision on which area to choose to the jury members, the jury chair and the jury members. They discuss amongst themselves and figure out which area to choose. So we choose, if you look at, let's say, physical sciences, it contains physics, chemistry, astronomy, various sub-disciplines in physical sciences, geology, and they will decide, this year which area to focus on, and within that which one to look at. And each jury panel is independent, and they decide on what area to choose. That's how the areas are chosen.
Thank you, Chris. Do we have Anvesh Reddy from Deccan Chronicle here? Okay, I think he's dropped off due to technical difficulties. Chethan, I think we can circle back to you. Chethan Kumar from Times of India to ask the last question. Chethan? I think you're on mute. You have to unmute yourself if you're trying to speak. Okay. So what we will do is perhaps just take one last question from anyone else, or if the jurors want to comment on that last bit on whether it has any relevance to, if the current situation has any relevance to the work of our winners and how you chose them, please do chip in with comments.
If
and
I
then
may interrupt, sorry, Bhavna, sorry, Shivani here, sorry for this interruption. Just one question to the ISF again. 13 years is a long time. So if I have to ask you, how do you evaluate this journey? And perhaps if you can also talk about the impact that ISF has managed to create. Would somebody share thoughts on that? Thank you.
So let me again comment. This is Chris. So we have already talked about how some of the laureates have gone on to win other awards and recognition around the world. And in that sense, creating icons for other scientists, for youth to get inspired by the work of our laureates. I think that is indeed happening. Shubhu also talked about how we are communicating the work that's done by the laureates across the country. Some of the jury members are also participating in this communication of science across the country. Third, this, I believe, has become one of the premier awards in the scientific area in India, and is now being considered as an important prize in recognizing the best scientists in the country. We have also, through the, and some of the winners talked about this today, in the areas, highlighted their areas, highlighted the work that they're doing, the importance of the work that they're doing, and hopefully inspire them to do a lot more in the future. So we have, over the years, we believe, have had an impact on the work, scientific work that's being done in India or about India, and raise the awareness of world-class science that is being done in India.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for those remarks. This has been a very exciting discussion for us, and I see that Pallavi Dubey has a question. If your hand is raised, we can take one very brief question, after which we would like to bring this program to a conclusion. Pallavi, you could unmute yourself and ask a question if you have one.
Yeah, thank you so much, and congratulations to all the awardees over here. My question goes to Dr. Nair. It's just a small question. I want to ask that as India is already been threatened about this new variant, Omicron, so what do you think, like, will the existing techniques work against this virus variant?
Most tests in the market today do not use the S gene as a target, and therefore mutations in the S gene should not affect any test that is already there in the market. So every test there in the market that has been validated and approved by ICMR should work against the new variant also.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, everyone. And I would like to invite you on behalf of the trustees of the Infosys Science Foundation to the prize ceremony and felicitation by our chief guest, Dr. Gagandeep Kang. The prize ceremony begins at 6:30 p.m. on YouTube, We're pasting the link here for you to join us at 6:30 p.m.